is New Challenger Gaming. We're here with our first podcast. With me, Andrew.
Stella.
Juan.
Mike.
Eddie.
Lauren. I mean Stella.
That sounded so bland, guys. I'm sorry.
Wait, I'm Lauren. Just kidding.
Sounds just like me.
Okay,
So why are we all here?
I got a letter in the mail, so
I was invited.
somebody told me we were going to Hogwarts. I am very disappointed right now.
It's gonna be a magical experience.
You didn't go run into any pillars, did you?
I did. I ran into that wall so many times.
Anyways, our first subject is where games were back then, like how they were
Back when?
back from when they first originated.
Okay.
I wasn't live then.
You know,
Back in the day, yo.
it could go all the way back to when you first
Throwback
started playing
Tuesday.
till where they are now.
Okay.
And I don't know, the one thing I could say is you could tell the difference. You can
Oh.
totally tell the difference.
I
course,
could
come on.
not.
No way.
I do. No difference. Grant
No
that.
way.
It
Not
all
in
looks the same.
gameplay, though. I mean, original gameplay is harder to come by these days. Back then, everything was new.
Ish. Well, yeah. I mean, how many donkeys did you have conging around?
Yeah.
So-
I don't know. I think it's crazy because like I feel like back then games were way more challenging than they were now. Like now they kind of hold your hand, like for 90% of the damn
Yes.
game.
And nobody
Yes.
wants that.
Ish.
Well,
Did better about it.
But at the same time, that's what cheats are for. Like back then, a game
Oh, yeah.
was so hard, but you had cheats.
That is one thing I miss is the unlockable stuff. Now it's all DLC.
Now it's all
so-
paid for, yeah.
Yeah, so see, it goes down to the subject like games used to be really challenging, and they rewarded you when you finished one, like, and you would have to keep playing to be able to get all these rewards.
wait. How were you rewarded? Explain that to me.
Well, for example, like this isn't like a really old game, but like Resident Evil. Every time you beat the game, you unlock a new gun or new costume.
Okay.
Or,
Okay.
Also,
So, wait, that one still kind of comes up to today in terms of like a God of War. There was an unlockable, I don't know which one it was, but you got to play as God of War, where he had like a fish suit.
Oh, shit. What?
oh, nice.
But yeah, some games still have something like that. Like
Sounds
also
fishy.
Borderlands. Shut up. Also Borderlands. You can unlock True Vault Hunter mode, and you can basically keep going from there.
Dead Space had that, yeah.
Yeah, there you,
You
go. Like
unlock
New Game
costumes.
Plus.
But
It's
these
like
are all
mobile,
new
yeah.
games.
Good.
Talking
So-
about the old ones.
Yeah.
Well, comparing them to the old
But
ones.
yeah, comparing them to the old ones, we'll say that lately that doesn't appear anymore as much as it used to.
Like I think one that really stood out to me back then was like Super Mario World, the Super Nintendo, the SNES one. Like, this is something a lot of people probably didn't even get. You know when you go to like the Star World, and then there's also the middle of the Star World, and once you complete all those like super impossible levels, you unlock like new skins for all the enemies, and you can't take the skins off, but you unlock new skins for all the enemies. They're like pumpkins and stuff flying around instead of
Oh,
Koopas.
yeah.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Like the Halloween world.
And there's no way to get rid of it unless you delete the whole cartridge.
Was it the whole cartridge?
It's the whole cartridge.
I thought it was like just that safe.
No, it was the whole cartridge.
Huh. Interesting.
There's older examples of rewards, like going back to the Sega. You had Sonic the Hedgehog. I know it wasn't a big deal, but when you beat the first one, you got to listen to the soundtrack. You got to watch gameplay. That was just cool to see. Going back even older, like Metroid, Samus under the suit. That was like you had no idea, and then people would tell you about it, and you wanted to experience that, so you'd beat the game, and that was a reward.
Yeah, experience that,
Yes.
Mike. Yeah.
That pixel bikini, like all those squares
It was
positioned right.
I still never beat the first Sonic. Fuck that game.
You never beat the first one?
I never beat.
Oh.
I got to the casino level, and then I was like, too hard.
That's
good.
where I got to. I got to
Yeah.
the casino
That's a-
level,
that's
and
a
you're just
second
like,
song.
Yeah,
fuck
you
this.
guys know.
Yeah.
That was like
It
The
got so
casino
much
level
after
was
that.
not
I
the
was
first
like,
one.
The first Sonic was...
And the water level. Fuck the water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Scary ass music in that water.
Well, see, that goes
Sonic's
back...
Water Temple.
That goes back to making it challenging. Like, those games didn't hold your hand when you got to those kind of points. Like, you had to, like, go trial and error. Like, this don't work, this does work.
To be fair, those games were a lot simpler. Like, how much more complex? I mean, Sonic is, like, a lot simpler in the games now. Because it's just move left, right, jump over stuff, collect rings. Very simple.
But they also innovated, like, the limitation of a lot of things. Like, the first Sonic, you couldn't do, like, the spin dash Like he couldn't.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was either you had to keep the momentum and hopefully run through the level, or you would have to stop and pace yourself because you can't just jump over something without the momentum. So they still had the limitation to that. And that was still pretty complex.
I think that was more of a Sonic staple, you know? Like Sonic was known for being fast, whereas Mario was just very, you know, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, he was known for jumping. Jump man.
Yeah, he was
I
jump
suck
in
at
very
that
much.
game.
Yeah.
Well,
So like they put the spin in Sonic, so you know it could.
Literally.
Oh, shut up.
Even with the Mario games, they had the limitation. Like you had to figure out how to control his jump. It wasn't just like a
Oh my
jump
god,
and
you push
control
one
it.
button.
No,
I mean, like,
you're right because he's actually right because the longer you hold it, the longer you stayed in the air.
Yeah,
And
but
it-
that takes like 2 seconds to learn.
No, but
It's
I can't
intuitive.
master that yet.
there's also the run
Suck at
button.
Mario games.
The
It
what?
was actually a lot harder. Super Mario, going back and playing that, well, not Super Mario, but Mario Brothers was a lot harder than people give it credit for.
Oh yeah.
A lot of
It's a
people still
difficult
haven't even beat that game. Like, because like I said, it goes back to the limitations. Because you have to have momentum to be able to make some of those jumps. You can't just stand at the corner and jump.
Yeah.
So it's not just the click of the button. You have to figure out the whole, like,
Right,
mechanics.
but that was like Mario's staple versus Sonic's, which was being fast, speed. Like at the time, nothing moved that fast. You
Gotta
know,
go
so
fast.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Zelda, like, is a good example. Not only did the game not hold your hand, it
There's
had
nothing.
It had a physical manual for you to read. But that was cool about games back then. It wasn't.
Man, I missed.
Here's a
manual.
tutorial, which I completely understand. Modern games have like 40 buttons for you to learn and to master, so that
Don't you
makes
do?
sense. Oh yeah, but I mean, there are games today that are so simple and so intuitive that anybody can just pick up, and
True.
they have to just tell you. It was
Flappy
a-
See, that's what I think the game developers like don't understand nowadays is you want to make a game where anyone can jump on it and understand it without a tutorial.
Accessibility. That's very
no,
important.
accessibility is important, but you don't like they have to give something too, not just the developer. They have to try.
Well, yeah.
You can't just hand it to them. If it's only going to take 5 minutes to figure out, why not?
Well, like you said, the first Zelda, for example, if you didn't, let's say you bought it like at a secondhand store, you didn't have the manual. The game just throws you in there and you start figuring it out, but it's still easy enough to figure out. It's not like impossible. Like, oh, there's this mechanic that I didn't even know existed.
Kids could figure it out. I mean, I played.
Yeah, you got to give people more credit. I mean, stuff like even like with a manual and everything, there's going to be one thing in some games that you're going to be like, I have no idea how this works or how to do it, but you still like. Metal Gear Rising made it halfway through the game without being able to parry, and that was super important. I completely ignored them when they were telling me how to do that. And I just went back and learned it again. I started a new save file. How hard was that?
Hard.
Yeah.
Not hard. Not hard.
I feel like that's more of a design issue. It's like they put the tutorials. They
Oh, no, I just
hold
skipped
your
it.
hand. They hold your hand so that they don't have to. Like in Mario, you know, there was specific enemies or jumps or whatever that you had to learn. You know, through just playing the game versus these newer games, like I said, there's, you know, all these fucking buttons, there's all this shit you gotta do. So they throw in a tutorial so they don't have to put stuff, they don't have to design levels around them to teach you. Like, Ni no Kuni, that game was teaching me shit well into 10 hours into the game. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, son of a bitch.
Super Mario Brothers, or no, not Super Mario. Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64. The first level of that game is pretty much a tutorial stage, like that
Yes.
whole thing. Which is that is a good example of well done tutorial, where it's like it feels like a part of the game. I think a lot of pitfalls that developers run into is trying to add something like that and make it part of the game. If it's like not part of the game, you really realize it's a tutorial and it's not fun. So
Well,
Like-
Mega Man does that. They like introduce bad guys before
Yes.
you even go into a field with a bunch of them. They're like, hey, this guy jumps around.
Yeah,
There's gonna be guys jumping around later. Oh, hey, I've seen this guy before. He jumps around.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Something with that, like one of the latest games, Fallout 4. They did not hold your hand well enough, I guess, and you kind of had to figure out how to do a lot of the stuff. So in a way, it kind of makes sense that they're holding your hand, but they need to not take it too far, I guess.
Oh yeah,
There's a
but
limit.
exploring
There's
is
a
fun.
Yeah.
Like, I know another good example for a newer game that doesn't hold your hands is like the Dark Souls series, and this is what I was telling Eddie.
Oh,
yeah.
that's a
The-
given.
Well, the
that's-
Demon Souls and Dark Souls, but this is the thing now though. Like, the thing with that though is like, they didn't hold your hand when you first started. You had to like learn from error and trial.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to figure out what's going on.
That's the whole game.
But, for example, switching from the Soul series to Bloodborne, they pretty much built Bloodborne off of what the feedback was from those games. And it wasn't just learning; it was dying a lot. So when Bloodborne came out, they advertised it as a game where you die constantly, and then they took out the whole aspect of learning from. This guy's gonna pop out from this corner, or you die, and you're like, okay. Instead, they end up just putting people there, and you're like, okay, now how do I get past this? Hoping you could somehow kill it. And it turns into a grind game where you just grind, get your level up,
You just gotta run through it.
and it's not a learning experience. It's just
I
it
have
turns into like the meta stuff.
an
Gotcha.
older
Isn't that
example.
more of well, hold on. Isn't
Yeah.
that more of like learning the what do you call it? Like the
Learning curve.
no, not the learning curve.
Too old to learn.
Damn you, learning.
The
No.
patterns.
Yeah, the patterns. Isn't it
Pattern
more of a
recognition.
pattern kind of game? Like you have to learn the patterns and then you can get past it afterwards.
You mean in Dark
In
Souls?
Dark Souls, yeah.
Yes, I
Well,
would say so.
that game is more pattern, but there is still the skill
Yeah.
aspect because you're limited to what you can do. You can't just like keep dodging.
Well, even if you know something's coming, if you can't fight it, then you're screwed anyway.
Yes.
Well, the Dark Souls games and like Demon Souls, if you ran into something, you can fight it, or you can run. But if you run, it's gonna chase you. So there's still
Like life. Oh, no.
well, there's still a consequence. It's not just like you dodge that whole thing and you don't fight it anymore.
Here's an interesting thought. Is it possible that it's not just the games that have been highly evolving? It's also the players who now are more aware of complex systems. and
Everybody
games.
gets a ribbon. But both of those things, yes. People are getting smarter. They're
more in
getting-
tune to games.
Yeah, they grew up with games their
Yeah.
entire life. They understand complex electronics. It's intuitive to them now. But at the same time, they've also been cheated of real world experience and figuring stuff out. Like, everybody has access to information, so which is good, but they don't have to think. They can just grab it right away. Instead
So
of,
you think they're incorporating that into games?
No, I just think that's how people have evolved, and it affects.
Modern
think you're
society's plight
Well,
or
it's
pathos.
just everyone is a player now too.
Yeah.
Everyone. It's not people who have been like dedicated to games their whole lives. It's just, oh, this game looks fun. My boyfriend likes to play it. I'm gonna pick up Call of Duty or something.
I remember when that
And
happened.
girls usually don't play games, or some girls suck at it, or some guys suck at it, and they just want to impress their friends.
Female gamers are pretty big, actually, and
Let's
that
not get into that, but I was just saying,
We're not there for
I was
this.
just saying, like, everyone can play now. Like, if a girl doesn't play games and her boyfriend does, like, she'll pick up the game, and if it's not fun for her, she can't play with her boyfriend. If it's not easy for her to grasp, then they're not going to play together, and they need to incorporate any player with the pro player together. So that's why it seems easier to you pro players, because you guys aren't coming in as newbies.
That's why games suck now.
Everyone is a player now.
no, that's a good
That's really
thing.
true.
It's thanks to
Accessibility.
It is a good thing,
smartphones
but
and Facebook.
Also a downfall.
Yeah.
You
Is it-
had
Yeah.
25-year-old
That's
males playing video games in like 2006, and then out of nowhere, everybody like above the age of 40 started playing games on Facebook, and then that was like 2009.
Accessibility.
Before that, everybody
Farmville.
under like the age of like 5 started playing games because of a touchscreen is so intuitive. So just out of nowhere, games had already been around for several decades, but now every age group was able
now
to
they're
play.
more accessible.
That's
So,
Sorry, are you
like if free to play games existed when I was a kid, I'd be all over fucking Angry Birds.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, you know.
Well, so would you say it's getting harder to make games more difficult and more of a challenge for people to learn?
No, definitely not. You have a lot of different groups of gamers and types of gamers, whereas back then it was pretty much people who played Mario, platformers. The range of games were much smaller back then. So you also have a bigger range of skill level now than you did back during Mario or Sonic. The skill levels now are like wildly all over the place. You have very casual, small time gamers and then huge pro gamers to the point where it is a sport.
So isn't that why some games have started incorporating the kind of free pass kind of thing? So if you go back to like New Super Mario Bros. Wii or something, there was a thing that where if you couldn't beat a level, they'd give you like a power up and they would walk you through it. And then you could see this through like a Nintendo. Like they did it for Donkey Kong too. If you couldn't get past a certain part, they'd be like, "Oh, here's a power up. Now you can watch them do it."
Wow.
I think that's a good idea because people who want it to be difficult, they'll never ever see that. So
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
I remember on one of the Ninja Gaiden. I don't know how to fuck pronounce that. There was one game.
Gaiden?
I forgot. Yeah, Gaiden.
Go on.
I forgot which one it was, but like if you kept getting your ass beat, they would drop it down a difficulty level and tie a fucking pink ribbon onto your wrist.
That's true. Yeah.
So it was a constant reminder.
Chicken hat.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you think that's acceptable? Is like you fail so much in the game, it
Starts off.
it shows that you're not.
It shames you.
like Metal Gear does that too.
You
Metal Gear
poor
Phantom
bitch.
Pain, you get the chicken hat.
I clicked on it on accident once.
I haven't tried it yet. I've never
feel
clicked
the
on it.
It was making like chicken noises, but like these guys should have like saw me right away. They did it, and I'm like, oh. And it does the like exclamation point at every single guy who sees you, not just the first one.
So is it like they see you and they acknowledge you're there, but they don't do anything?
Well, the first one does. Like I walked up to 4 guys. It's like, duh! I shoot him. The next guy sees me, duh! And then you know.
So it's like kid mode.
I guess as long as it's a choice and not something they force on you because you suck. You know, if you're like, well, I've been playing this for 4 days, I can't get past it. I'll wear the chicken hat. Like, you know,
No.
See, I don't know. I feel like some developers forget that aspect though, because there's some games where they don't even give you a choice. They walk you through everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good
It's
example.
fairly-
Ultra Despair Girls.
Oh yeah. Like it's like tutorial after
It's
tutorial through the
tutorial
whole
for
game.
every new thing they show you, and you can get the
It's too
gist
much.
of it if you
You
just
can't
like
skip it,
test
can
it
you?
out. You can't
Yeah.
skip it.
Oh,
They're
God.
like, here's this Monokuma, here's how to use it.
That does
Use
get
it,
frustrating.
and it's through the entire game,
Jesus.
all the way to the
Tutorial
last freaking
simulator.
level.
Well, that's my
Damn.
bottom line on the subject is there are some games that every player who buys that game, like 90% wants it to be hard. Or there's other games where it needs to be a good mix. There's other games where you expect it to be easy and accessible. But you shouldn't just automatically put the easy accessible into this hardcore game that veteran players are going to be the only ones who buy. You can add an easy mode to one of those games, but you don't have to revolve everything around it being simple if somebody wants the challenge.
Well, see, that goes back to the main subject. How I was saying how games used to be back then. I remember back then, games didn't give you a difficulty level. It was the game. It was the fucking game.
You remember that? No.
In a way.
I was gonna say, like, if you jumped on a game, like, the best example I could say is, like, Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you did not learn that game, you weren't gonna get past the first level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've never passed the second level. Like even to this day, I still can't pass that second level.
An interesting way that back then they actually did have a sort of difficulty level was the first Super Mario Brothers, where you could take a warp pipe and that would completely eliminate the difficulty. So even in Super Mario Brothers 3 with the warp flute. So interestingly enough, it did exist back then, but in a completely different flavor.
See, I kind of feel like that was more of an unlockable though. That was like something you end up learning after a while. Like you played through the game, you didn't just know about that. and there is no way to be taught about it. You just end up
Yeah,
finding
it-
out
it
from
wouldn't-
friends or
yeah.
word of mouth. Or
I could see that.
But how does that equate to difficulty though? Because the way that I'm thinking about it is you can skip all the easy stuff, and it gets harder as you get along, right? Because like an example that I can give you is when I used to play like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES. Like, I was really into that game, and I like
The
remember-
side-scrolling one, right?
Yeah, the side-scrolling one. I think they remade it for Xbox Live or something. Anyway, long story short is I was really into it. I would get like certain really far, and then like once I'd get to like the newest level,
Battletoads.
I was just like, oh my god, I need to not die. I need
The
to not
water
die.
levels in that game were
And,
like that
and
was
now Juan
where it
has
got to.
anxiety.
I wouldn't blame you because I died in that level and I literally cried. I was like, I didn't want to do it again.
Yeah.
I feel like they added those warps though because they didn't have a save. Like games didn't have
True.
batteries inside
Oh,
of
God.
them.
No,
You couldn't save games. There's no passwords.
That's
in a
not
lot of
true,
games.
actually. If you've ever played Faxanadu, also the Nintendo Entertainment System, that one had a password that you could enter in to progress to the save spot you were at.
Not all games.
That's
Not all games.
Yeah,
did,
and
I
but
feel like
Password.
some games didn't have that too though because a lot
Not
of the developers
Fantastic
didn't know how to code it.
Dizzy. That game was like you had to explore, but you couldn't save. And if you had a Sega like we did, if anything so much as touched that Sega, it would freeze. Giving you the biggest incentive. Like it brought the whole family got in on the game. Like I'm good at the train levels. I'm good at the exploring part. I remember where all the secret stuff is. Next thing you know, every single family member, brothers, sisters, dad, are all trading the game back and forth, and they're all getting involved on it until they can beat it. And you had to beat it in about a day because the Sega would overheat and freeze by then.
oh wow.
Well, maybe that's like why
I thought that was cool.
maybe that's why we have this difficulty level or this hand holding now, because back in the day, like we were all kids, right? You got a game, you didn't have a job, you couldn't do anything else, you had to beat that fucking game. Like if you did not have fun at that game, well, go outside. So people got good and they got better and they got, we have these pro players now who've
make money off of it.
Yeah, who make money off of it, who've been doing this since they were kids, beating games that we're sitting here like, fuck that game. So.
Okay, well, jumping off the difficulty of games and how they're changing now.
That's a big one.
Yeah. I was going to say, what about the stuff they put into games, like back then to now? Like as in...
Like mechanics?
Well, mechanics, or like how nowadays we have like amiibos,
Jiggle
DLC, or like...
There's only one big thing that sticks
Zapper.
out to me. People think that either some kind of hardware mechanic or graphics fidelity is an exchange for game quality. Like they think if I just put this much more into it, I don't have to make this much more game. And that is really common.
It is.
Nowadays.
There is some viability to it, just because if you look at anything from Call of Duty, which has had lots of sales,
But
and
if you're talking about Infinity Ward, though,
Yeah.
it looks good. It plays good. It's not my first game of choice, but I think the Modern Warfare 1, 2, 3 are pretty good, well-made games.
Yeah.
See, it was weird because I remember when I
Reskin.
first started playing Call of Duty, I think it was Modern Warfare 1. They didn't have that much DLC on it. That was when DLC wasn't that big. And then now I feel like when I buy a Call of Duty game, I feel like it's an incomplete game because it's mainly multiplayer and you have to buy all the DLC for all the maps to even be able to play it with people, which Call of Duty,
That's all it really is nowadays. It's really rare for me to meet anybody who would say, I play the Call of Duty games for the story.
Yeah.
That's true.
I do, but then I don't
get
buy.
out.
I don't
You
buy.
not play
I
for
don't
the
buy the
story.
game.
You're a
I
liar.
I like single player campaigns. I don't like multiplayer. So I go through the campaign. I borrow the game, go through the campaign, and get rid of it.
You're not a
I
gamer.
feel like the single player in Call of Duty has
But your
from-
girlfriend got you into games.
from where it started off being
I wish
like
I had one.
an actual game. Call of Duty is morphed into like it's specifically multiplayer, and the single player is treated as a tutorial, like a jumping off point for people getting into the series. Like that's how they're becoming accessible. It's like, yeah, you like single player? Alright, cool. Well, we also have zombie mode. You can play that. And if you, want to get heated at some kid calling your mom twat, go online, test your luck.
Really? That's all they say?
That's the nicest thing they've said.
like Call of Duty.
That's how I got invited in.
I feel like Call of Duty used to have an actual, like the one player mode besides feeling like a training mode, it actually had a good story. You actually could go through a campaign and play it, and now it just feels like a game that has a bunch of mini games or multiplayer games that you just play with friends, and you mainly just play that Call of Duty game with friends. Well, back then, if you had a shooting game, it was either you go through the game by yourself, or you have a friend on the couch playing the same story that you're playing with no other multiplayer. It's just, the game was kind of like a complete game instead of there's this multiplayer mode with multiple maps. And
there's some fun games still
Civilization
around
type deal.
like that.
We'll talk multiplayer games then and now, because that's a big change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember sharing the same computer keyboard for two players to play the same game on the same screen.
I remember hating my family with Mario Party.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you're talking, we seem to have like two little topics here, but in terms of multiplayer and, well, no, not in terms of multiplayer, in terms of the story for like the shooters, you got to think that in the past everybody was doing World War II stuff. Every year it seemed like everybody was doing
I don't
World
think
War
that's
Man,
changed.
I miss that
No,
so
it has
much.
changed because now Call of
Everything's-
Duty is doing modern warfare. It's like all these what if scenarios, like, oh, what if Russia freaking invades us now?
Huh.
But that's okay. I don't mind, because otherwise
I've
in the past it was all World War II
Or the
true.
future.
or super future.
Yeah.
It's still kind of future now.
But at least there's like modern day, I can shoot people in a realistic sense.
Yeah.
Not that I want to shoot people.
Well, besides like shooting games, like another genre is like fighting games. Like back then they had the arcade mode where you actually unlock a backstory of the main characters and stuff.
That's true. Tekken.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like nowadays they don't even include that in games now.
I thought they
Yeah,
did.
They somewhat
It's
do.
DLC.
It's
To give you Killer Instinct, the new one, yes.
Oh wow.
It is DLC.
Well, Street Fighter-
Mortal Kombat.
Oh my god! Like Mortal Kombat had a story mode, I guess, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really like a fighting game when you're playing the story mode. It's more cinematic than anything.
Yeah.
No.
Back then you had the single player, one character story. Everybody got their own story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nowadays, like, what Mortal
DLC.
Kombat is doing is you're playing as every single character throughout the whole story.
See, I feel like the developers don't take it into consideration that there might be one person that's taking this home and not playing with their friends. So,
Me.
Well,
It's harder to consider because back then, that is pretty much what you had to do, and now almost everything is multiplayer accessible. It's like all the big games seem like they're really multiplayer.
I'm not a big fighting game fan, but I feel like the biggest spit in the face to fighting game fans was Dead or Alive Last Round.
oh my god,
That game was so piecemeal, and like my friend has art in that game. It's a costume for somebody, and I was like, oh sweet, I'll just buy this like $5 thing, and get the base game. And no, fuck, I gotta spend $40 just to see his costume. I'm like, man, I don't even like this.
Wow.
And it's only a multiplayer mode.
It was like Killer Instincts, for instance. The game comes out, you get like what, 4 characters or something?
No. The original was 1.
Wow.
You only got Jago.
Yeah, and then you have to keep buying the characters, and then the game equals more than a $60 game because
Yeah.
you're constantly buying all this stuff, which is
Yeah.
cool at the same time because you don't have
It's
to go
like-
buy
yeah.
a new game. But it also sucks because you didn't buy a complete game. You bought it
That is a
pieces.
lot.
Like
I
deals. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, we are definitely the older generation of gamers right here, so we definitely notice that they're packing in this DLC crap all the time, and like you feel like you don't really get a complete game out of a lot of the games that you purchase nowadays. So you have to wonder, is that just something that we as older gamers are noticing, and maybe the younger gamers just don't, or is it actually on the mind of people who are like younger than us? Call in now.
I have a theory on that.
Right.
It's that all these little kids, as you're saying, they're growing up with it. You know.
Yeah.
It's
the norm.
DLC is normal to them.
Yeah.
And it's not normal to us.
No.
But I'll give you that some developers are really screwing with us in a way because
True.
Take EA.
Good old EA.
Battlefront. Everybody's saying that game is beautiful, but it feels super incomplete.
Yes.
Like, it's all multiplayer. The single player stuff is all similar to the multiplayer. There's no story mode, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And now they're releasing DLC for the same price as the whole game.
The season pass stuff.
Yeah. So, I think, in a sense, it's a little bit of both. We're noticing it a lot more, and some publishers are really screwing with us.
I think, yeah.
I feel like a lot of publishers take advantage of it because they'll see people buy DLC, and then they'll be like, well, let's sell the game in pieces as again. And then, you'll be like, okay, I bought this game for $30, and now you have to buy this to be able to complete the game. Because there's some games where, like, you go through the story mode, and you're like, okay, well, there's, like, a piece missing in that story. What the hell happened right there? And then they're like, oh, hey, $10. Now you can buy that piece of the story.
I feel like they did that on purpose with, like, the rise of GameStop and people buying games used. Like, if you...
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, you send out a game completely whole, and, you're like, all right, cool. I'll buy it brand new, and it's fine, whatever. But then you buy it used a year later, year and a half later for, like, $30. The devs, publishers never see any of that. So they have to throw in DLC to make their money back,
Except for EA, they have money.
Yeah, fuck EA.
What about fuck EA? One thing that will screw that is Game of the Year stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll go back to that.
I think we're just getting mad because we're so used to getting stuff for free. Like, this is our generation. We're used to buying a game and having it all there. And now we're going into another generation where if there is an extra expansion pack, like, we want to just download it for free off the internet and, like, just add it to our game and whatever. But now they're hitting the point where they're losing money, so they have to charge us for that kind of stuff. Like, they're giving us what we want with the game, but they also need to make their money for making that extra piece for the game. So I think we're just upset because we're so used to just wanting stuff for free.
We're all cheap.
We are cheap. We are cheap. Like, we're the ones who are downloading music. The newer generation knows that they have to pay for that shit.
Yeah.
Not us, though. We're bad. But that's kind of like the generation we're in. It's just like the stealing, taking stuff for free, whereas that's the kind of stuff that needs to be paid for. But we're still on that borderline mentality. We're like trying to break away from the free. We should probably pay for this instead.
It's an interesting thing to follow up with that. So if you consider that you would, in the past, purchase, like, you'd get all 40 characters from a game, and then you'd have a full, and the full game, and it would cost, like, $60 or $40 or something like that. Now, in order to get all 40 of those characters, each one would cost, like, $2 to $5, and the total price of the game jumps from the 40 to 60 to up to 80 to 100. So you see a big jump in the price, but you also see that optional content being, like, if you want all that optional content, like us as gamers, we somewhat completionists, so we try to get all of that content, because that's what we were raised to do as a play style. So you have the ability to get optional content, and you consider that it's the same effort back then as it would be now to add all that in, but then they piece it out, so they're not getting as much for all that content. I don't know if that makes sense.
A little bit.
I know what you mean.
Well, with DLC, we're not bringing up, like, the good points and why it even exists in the first
that's
place.
There's some DLC I love. I'll give you that.
I know. Project Diva. Oh my God.
Red Dead Redemption.
I'll pay, like,
That was what I was gonna bring up, like,
Space, don't even get me started. Oh, God.
And then, like, Red Dead's a really good example of good DLC.
Stop. I'm
Rock
gonna make
Band.
love to you.
I don't have a problem with Rock Band because you still get songs, and then they don't have to pick and choose. Like, we're gonna put in these songs that we think everybody's gonna like, but then maybe this guy wants to do more metal. He has an option now, and he's paying for songs like he would buy songs regularly. Only it's expansions on his game.
Yeah.
So that's a good example. World of Warcraft, each new expansion, it's expensive to keep a massively multiplayer game going.
Oh,
And so for them to expand on it is a great idea. It keeps it paid for without them saying, here, we're just going to raise our current prices.
It keeps subscribers.
Yeah.
And it keeps the game fresh for the people who love that game.
Well, like back then though, would you say like, because I don't know, I feel like DLC pretty much replaced unlockable content.
It did.
Yeah.
So
I think that was going to happen anyway.
yeah, but would you like? Would you still want them to put unlockable content in a game, or just make it all still DLC? Because back then, like, that was your goal, was to unlock that stuff, and now it's just to complete the game. There's no unlocking anything.
I wish they would just get the balance right.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with more DLC than unlockable, just because as cool as unlockable is, you really can get a lot more out of the DLC. I mean, there's little things that you can still unlock in games, achievements, stuff like that.
Costumes.
Guns. Well, actually, costumes and guns would be a DLC thing now. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
unfortunately.
that's not stuff you can unlock anymore. You have to buy it, and I think that's the lame part.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be nice to have access to
Well,
this.
if the game didn't cost, like, if the game wasn't expensive to develop, and the game costs like a modern game costs like $40, and then they wanted to charge you for DLC after that, great. Or if the game was full price, but each new DLC added a lot, and it wasn't too expensive or whatever, that would make sense. But to pay $60 for a game and then $10, too much.
Yeah. Going along with that, Fallout has always been a pretty good with their DLC. They added like a whole new storyline. Red Dead Redemption, we mentioned, like they added that Undead Nightmare. That was like its own little
That
game.
was amazing.
Bethesda itself has been pretty good with DLC.
They're hit or miss. Well, they've always been good in my book because I like Skyrim and Fallout, so they had everything good there.
Yeah.
But then I remember seeing a video where they did horse armor, and nobody wanted to pay
That
for
was
that.
like the first major DLC that they were like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Was that for Oblivion?
Yeah.
For Oblivion.
Oh.
Yeah. They wanted to charge
they
you like
didn't do
$2
jack shit.
just to put horse armor on your horse.
That's
I feel like the drive in DLC has a lot to do not only with like used sales, but also like, how do I say this? Games that God damn it! I had it on the tip of my tongue, man. Sorry, come back to me, man.
Okay, so there is one thing that is an interesting aspect of DLC and how it affects indie games. So, or not just even indie games, but extra like user created content, is that this rise of DLC and little extras that can be paid for to be added to a game is starting to become part of the user generated content. People are more interested in charging for like little bits of money for their user created content. Like Skyrim is an example of where they were like trying to introduce it when the community wasn't ready. They tried to make some of their mods purchasable. So by content, even Dungeons and Dragons, the role playing tabletop game, has like user generated content you can purchase through their Dungeon Masters site. So even like little tabletop games are getting in on this DLC user generated content thing. So it's an interesting aspect of the user generated content and making little bits of money in games. So
I remember what I was gonna say. The time frame that games are made in, like Assassin's Creed being coming out every fucking year, has to have DLC to supplement the used sales, right? Because not everyone's gonna buy a brand new, especially if reviews come out like this chick's face is missing, this game is broken, like no one's gonna buy it until it's patched, Versus, take for example Grand Theft Auto 5. That game was in development forever, right? They released Mad Max 3, Red Dead Redemption, and LA Noire between GTA 4 and 5, right? So the game was in development forever, but when it released, it was great. Like, it was badass. And I think they did this on purpose. They released it first on the old generation, to make like initial sales, and then, online, being that it was the first major online GTA, they kind of use that as a backboard to test what works, what doesn't work, what to throw in, and whatever didn't work, they would keep working on and release patches, release new content. Like all the content they've released for GTA Online now that it's on the new gen, completely free. They do have microtransactions, but take it or leave it. You know, you don't really need it in the game.
Well, see, now that goes into the Game of the Year subject now.
Yeah.
So, they do release all the DLC. You pay all this money for it. A year later, they release the Game of the Year for the same price as the original game, with no extra cost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that make you feel about spending that much kind of money on it?
But that's how technology goes. Like, it's expected. What any shorter than a year would be like kind of a tipping point. But I expect my cell phone, I expect my computer, I expect anything that has any kind of circuitry in it or on it to be expired in like a year.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, see, I think it's kind of weird, though, because they'll still have the DLC for the original game, and the price won't change.
Well, and that, yeah.
So you'll buy the original game
it's
because it's
old
cheaper
content by
sometimes.
There's an interesting aspect to DLC that I'm gonna bring up just as a quick interruption. Is DLC and new content and like patches, things that are both free and not free when they add it to a game, does help keep a game relevant. So when you get all this new DLC or these expansions, you're like, well, now the game's a bit more relevant, and it's not just the old game that I was playing like a year ago.
When is it relevant, and when do you need to do a sequel now? Because that's something that some people...
Can we stop doing sequels?
Well, like Team Fortress 2.
No, it makes money.
Team Fortress 2 is a good example of that. They have all this content that's free. They keep adding.
Hats. No, it's
Little hats,
Pay
and
for the
cards,
hats.
and what else? They put a bunch of stuff in
They
there.
added, crafting guns,
Yeah.
all this other stuff.
Like
Yeah.
from what Team Fortress like originally was from the beginning
To what it is now.
totally different from what it is now, and
Relevance.
most of it was free.
Yeah.
They should probably make a sequel already.
They're not going to.
Yeah, they're not.
Half-Life 3?
Valve can't
as
have 3.
Yeah. But
Half-Life 3.
see, that'd be a good example from how you're saying
Yeah. It's a
making
very
it more
interesting
relevant.
I feel like it all comes back down to this timeline that like games are developed within a certain timeline. They're released at this timeline, you know, like before DLC was a big thing. Like Left 4 Dead came out, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's badass, you know. Everyone was like, yeah, cool. And like literally a year later, they released Left 4 Dead 2.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
was basically the same thing at different levels, and everyone was like, "What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not paying
Relevance.
$60 for another one of these. Like, if they had waited 2 years, it would have sold like, I want to say hotcakes, but who eats hotcakes?
I bought it anyway.
But what's a hockey?
Yeah. What the hell's
What's
a
a
hotcake?
Well, see, and
Is
then
it pancake?
It's a pancake. It's a McDonald's pancake.
Oh,
Then what's it called?
well, see, another thing too. So like how you're saying, a new game comes out and it's pretty much a reskin. Like games back then didn't really do that as much. If they made a new game,
Kinda.
well, like so Mario 1. Well, I guess Mario 1,
Mario
the
2
original
wasn't
Mario.
really the Mario 2,
Well,
so...
the original
Yeah.
Mario 2 was Mario 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Forgot about that.
but then they introduced Mario 3, which wasn't a reskin.
yeah,
they
that was
actually
completely-
built it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
The same goes from Sonic. Like first Sonic, the whole art style, everything changed to the second Sonic.
You had Tails.
What Zelda, the first Zelda,
Yeah.
they remade the whole game into a side scroller.
And then they realized.
And then
Yeah.
they fixed it.
But like games back then to now with reskins, like what do you guys think about that?
Well, give us an example of today.
Well,
What's been
today,
risky?
Assassin's
Everything.
Creed, for example, first Assassin's Creed, second Assassin's Creed is kind of a reskin. They kind of fix some mechanics.
part 1 and 2 are like worlds apart. Like
Oh,
part
yeah.
2 had like the base mechanics. It was almost a demo. Part 2 was like the Assassin's Creed, and then the next 3 after that, Brotherhood. What are the others?
Well, it's like you're on a
Black
boat, you have friends.
No, that wasn't until like 3, I think.
I don't know.
Shut up.
Well,
You know,
Okay,
those
so-
were all reskins.
that kind of makes that my wanting example. So,
Wanting.
yes, wanting.
That's the thing
So,
now.
I will
Made a
tell-
verb into one.
I will say like Fallout 3 to Fallout New Vegas Well, would you say that was a
This is
reskin then?
pretty much a reskin as well.
Because I would agree.
Those are two different developers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's weird about it, because the graphics were the same, but you had similar play styles, but they added like new stuff to it. So I don't know about that being a reskin itself.
I don't know if that's a reskin. I don't know if I'd consider that because the original developers of Fallout, let who was it, Bethesda,
Yeah.
take over for 3, and Bethesda, I guess revamped it. Made it fresh.
Yep.
And then the original developers were like, well, we can do that too. And New Vegas came out. And a lot of people... I hear more stuff online about people not liking New Vegas as much as 3.
Sure.
But there's a huge fan base that want the original developers to come back with that style.
There's always
It was good.
I don't know if it's a reskin or not.
But would you say like reskins happen more often now than they did back then, though?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, big
Well,
time.
now not only are they reskinning the game they made last year and the year, like the last 10 years,
Call of Duty.
they're reskinning games from 20 years ago. They're reskinning games from 30 years ago. They're just
There's a good I don't know about a good reason, but there's definitely a viable reason for that.
oh yeah.
So money is obviously the big issue. With the budget of games growing and growing to the point where it's almost Hollywood levels, they have to recoup the losses, or well, not recoup losses, but they have to make sure their game's profitable. So
What about when
reskinnings.
they get it wrong? Like I could think of 2 really good examples.
Thief.
There's Tony Hawk and there's Need for Speed, and they're both different. Like Tony Hawk was great up until Underground, and then after that everything is sucks. All they had to do was take Tony Hawk 2 and remake it, add better graphics, and they were set for life. But somehow they just kept making it worse and worse and worse. Need for Speed, they made Underground, and then they made the Pro Street, then they made the Shift, and all of these other games, and they can't just keep remaking Most Wanted but better. If they would do that, they would be fine.
For anybody who would be listening and wants to become a developer, remember that other developers can be dumbasses too. So there you go. There's your inspiration.
Well, see, I think it's crazy too because there's positive things and negative things that can happen with reskin. Because what was the game that just came out not too long ago? Undertale.
Yeah.
The original Undertale before the one now was actually a ROM hack of Earthbound. It was Mother or Earthbound?
It was Earthbound, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Earthbound.
And it created a fan base for him to create his own.
Yes.
Like the Day One, god damn it. DayZ H1Z1.
Oh, yeah.
deal.
Oh yeah. See?
No, that's a really good example of a reskin, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were basically took Arma and turned it into something completely different.
Or a really popular reskin.
Arma's reskinned a lot.
What a lot of developers do right now is the original Unreal games. They reskin that crazy.
Unreal Tournament?
Yeah, so happen to play another reskinned Unreal Tournament game.
It happens a lot. Yeah, that's for sure. There's a lot of, even in the indie, especially in the indie thing, they have DayZ. There's some sort of box styled survival engine, and it's pretty much just boxes like Minecraft looking, and it's supposed to be just a base that you use to build a game on top of, and then a bunch of indie developers come in and grab it and just use that base that you're supposed to build on and throw a game out using. It's just like game vomit, so and just all over. So
I feel like that's a lot of programs for game developers came out the past couple of years.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that might be a part of why games aren't
Very
as
accessible.
creative and they're you'll run into some creative ones sometimes, but you'll see a bunch of same old games, just different skins, and it's because they already have a base of a game, and a lot of people, a lot of developers will get that base, and they'll see an example of what you can do with that, and they'll just kind of copy off that example, and then you have to see multiple copies of that example.
Minecraft.
That brings up a good point, because it used to be that you had to build everything from the ground up, and then now game engines became
accessible.
You talk about Quake, Unreal Engine. Back then, Unreal Engine was used to make like
A lot
everything.
of things.
They started with the engine, but then they wrote their own AI, wrote their own physics engine, whatever. Now it's just they use the game engines have more features now, but not enough that's all you should be using. Like nobody writes their own custom engines or little add-ons anymore.
They do, but not a lot of people use them. So you see more often than not people putting in the most minimum effort to get a game out there. There is content. There's actually a lot of content out there for a lot of these engines that you can find. Unity engine has so much user-generated content. Even the RPG Maker series, the Game Maker series, all of those have tons of content that you can download and add onto the game to create a more original game that doesn't look just like it's cookie cut out of bull crap. So a lot of people don't use it though. That's the problem. They just want the most bare minimum level of effort and the most quickest access before actually.
But if they have a good idea, like something that hasn't been really tried, they try to implement it into the engine versus writing something from scratch.
Instead of there's definitely a huge limitation to these engines where, as building with scratch, you don't have to worry about that. If you build from scratch, you can pretty much do whatever you want within the limitation of your programming. So
unless Scratch is your game engine,
completely
different.
Scratch wouldn't be the best one.
Well, so from how game engines are used nowadays, like how some people don't know how to write their own codes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that's where a lot of people started introducing a lot of meta stuff into games where you do like pointless, like I'm trying to think of a good example.
You mean like a sub game? Like
or
Borderlands, you've
customization.
got all this and that, but like the actual game is collecting.
Clarify yourself.
So like, so where you do things in a game that doesn't actually progress yourself through a game, it just makes you feel like you're doing something valuable.
We were talking about this the other
So
night, and I use
Minecraft-
Skyrim as a big example, which I completely disagree with. But
I'm trying to figure this out. What?
Well, the
let
example
him
I
go.
use for Skyrim is so. Okay, so there's Skyrim. You could pretty much go to any point of the game at any time.
Yeah.
You might not
Sandbox.
be strong enough or anything, but the whole level up system in that game makes you feel like you're accomplishing something.
But you are accomplishing something. You're
No, but-
leveling up.
But it's not progressing you through the game. Like there's ways you could go through the game without leveling.
Oh, you're talking
So-
about linear versus open?
Well, I mean like in the easiest examples like Mario. Like you collect coins. They don't do anything except give you extra life, which can help you, but it doesn't really. You don't really need to collect those coins to progress in the game.
But you feel good
Yeah.
when you do it.
Oh,
Do you think
mean
that's why a lot of these developers
Like
put that
Farmville.
kind of stuff in games now?
I think
or
it's
they
nice.
don't put that stuff in games now?
Well, think Zelda Ocarina
know.
of Time. That had so much side stuff. It was worth it, but you didn't have to do it, but you still did it because it was cool. Like going through a whole
I think that's
mini section of the game just to get something or collect.
Yeah,
well,
that is different.
it is.
it was more rewarding. Yeah.
I feel like meta is a different. I don't feel like because I can't find examples for it in every single game, so I'm kind of lost.
Well, like another thing, like Borderlands, it's a loot game, so you're constantly collecting these guns that do absolutely nothing to help you progress. Like no one beats that game. Like I was telling Eddie the other night, no one beats the game using the same damn guns.
It kind of depends on
want
the
to.
game. Well, actually, you know what? No, maybe it doesn't depend.
It also kind of depends on how you play. You know, whether you're a sniper, shotgun user.
It does depend on the game. For example, if you play, Angry Birds. So basically, all you need to do is get 1 star or something to beat every level. You don't actually have to get 3
1
stars.
star or something. Don't have to,
You have to get
keeping
Mike.
your gamer cred.
or something. I don't.
Crash Bandicoot.
What about it?
Yeah, there was.
Go back
Banjo-Kazooie.
through and get the thingies, or go back through
Yeah.
and do the time attack. That was
Well, actually,
That was a purpose.
yeah, those actually
They-
make you progress through the story
but
because
you
there's other endings that you do after that.
Alternate
There,
ending.
there's
Come on.
there's stuff in games that doesn't do anything except make you feel good.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad thing. I mean, I don't know if that was even is it a contest of is it a bad thing, or are we just analyzing?
Well, that's what I was like. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do you see it more often nowadays?
Yeah, no,
I think you see it more often. No, I think you see it about the same amount.
My honest feeling is you see it a lot in games that don't actually have a story to go all the way through. But you do see it a lot in games that do have like a linear path.
Here's the problem with that. To say that you don't see it as much in games that have a story would be incorrect. Because games that have a story, the reward is the story. And you're getting these things that unlock part of the story. Whereas in the games that aren't so story-centric, you're still getting the same things, but they don't unlock the story. They unlock something else, or they have some purpose of, making you feel more powerful as a character. Whereas in games where it would be story-focused, it would make you feel...
I'm trying to think of a really good example.
So I can see where we're on the same
We
page.
have no good examples.
Yes. You have nothing. Good day, son.
Why are you still here?
Jesus Christ.
Should we come back to you?
We'll come back to that, yeah. So.
All right, yeah, because I think that it's a good thing, because games that have this unlockable, this thing where you go around randomly in Skyrim and pick up a random loot, there is a certain level of fun and a feeling of accomplishment for certain people. I think when you're a completionist, it can be extremely overwhelming, though, because you're just picking up brooms.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to, if it made you feel accomplished, you could buy the DLC, make a house, and literally fill it with cups. And just, here's a bunch of cups and books and brooms and a whole bunch of stupid shit that I absolutely do not need, but it's fucking mine.
Yeah.
So... Oh no, this is...
I did that with the books. I collected every fucking book.
My books.
And I was like, I'm gonna start reading these someday.
Well, see, you guys are on the topic, but like, I feel like I see that a lot more in games where they actually don't develop the game itself and they rely on those more to keep you into the game. Minecraft, for example.
But you're talking about like sandbox games and how they have stuff that's part of the sandbox, and I think that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Well, there's another game I played recently I can't talk about.
Okay.
And those are the kind of games that should have that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a multiplayer game.
Yeah, but you need to have some...
what this game is.
I don't know the game either.
We'd have to
by the way,
Yeah.
just say things.
Well, those are the kind of games that you need to have some kind of sense of accomplishing something instead of something where you do have a goal.
Isn't that the kill, though? Like, your KD?
No, because you still if you were to be able to collect weapons, or you could I'm trying to think of something good, armor, or I don't know.
But I
think that's like progressing through the multiplayer.
Let's talk about a multiplayer game
that we can't talk about.
Yeah, that we can talk about.
Has everyone
Something
played
similar
Call of
to
Duty?
that would be the Evolve.
Oh, fuck Evolve.
Yes, fuck Evolve.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Let's all agree to fuck Evolve.
Yeah.
But it's similar
so
in
cute.
that
That's actually a good
it's
example.
all about multiplayer. There are like a few unlockables here and there, but honestly, it's not. It doesn't.
It has no substance.
Yeah, it has no substance.
It's like Left 4 Dead, but like literally the matches are this guy's a monster, these guys are the enemies, right? And the whole game is like if you're a monster, all right, I have to level up, I have to do this, and your objective is to evolve so that you could take out the other team. The other team's objective is to find you and kill you, and that's literally as far as it goes. There's no fucking story. There's no, and it's. I'm not even gonna get into the DLC of that game, but but yeah, that's
but do you collect
that's a very
anything,
good.
for no point?
No.
Well, what
no,
about
it's-
achievements? Because a lot of achievements you don't need to beat the game. They're kind of outside of the game.
Achievements overall though are pointless.
Yeah,
Well,
they-
that's pretty much what they are
pointless.
too.
Yeah.
though.
They're
like,
pointless,
and you
but
have to
I
go
like
out
it.
of your way to like something stupid. Like you have to throw a grenade at a guy. Oh no, that's a bad example. You have to fall down and die 10 times, or you have to die in this one place 10 times. That's not something that's an achievement, but like when you unlock it, you're like, yay!
There was one in Red Dead Redemption Online that I remember I got asked to do, and I was like, this is stupid. But this kid got it, and he was like, fuck yeah, oh my god. And he had to round up like 10 of us in a group, and then throw a grenade and kill all of us with one grenade. And we were like, okay, cool. And then he killed us, and they were like, oh, cool. And everyone's
Okay.
was like, wait, I wanted to.
So I know how to rephrase it. So when do you think it's appropriate for that kind of stuff, and when do you think it's not appropriate?
Always.
It's always appropriate. I mean, unless
It's a staple of games.
Yeah.
It's appropriate for
since.
replay value.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ever
That's
since.
what keeps you playing the game.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Yeah. If it doesn't matter how much time you spend on games, if you don't feel like it's a waste of time, it's not a waste of time. If you're having fun, if you're entertained, then that just did something for you,
So if there was a game that was purely no story, and all you did was collect things for no apparent reason,
Minecraft.
would you play it?
There's
without
that one
story?
game where you're that blob, and then you go around collecting other blobs and then eating other people that have grown.
Oh,
Katamari?
no.
No.
I knew somebody was going there.
That game
was fun, though.
that's a perfect example though. Like you're
Yeah,
not
there's-
doing anything special. It's-
That was
It's
a
fun.
very.
It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
It's appropriate, and that's what the game is based on. Like it's really appropriate for it. The one you're talking about is like the mutant blob
There's a bunch
of
of them.
space or something.
There's a bunch of them. Spore
Kid
used
Blob.
no Spore, no.
Well,
Sport has no
anything,
point.
Yeah.
anything in that realm, like SimCity, what's the point? What's not the point? I mean, yeah, it's open-ended
Open-ended
games need that kind of stuff.
So yeah, open-ended
You
games
make your own fun.
definitely benefit from having these sort of little tiny objectives that help you feel like you are accomplishing something in a game. They don't necessarily need it because at some point the user generates parts of the game, and there's a lot of fun to that. Whereas linear games, I think, benefit the most because there's already in an open world game tons of replayability. In a more linear game, trying to think, replayability is a little harder to capture. So
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there
Kinda
needs to
neat.
be there needs to be
So we could-
replayability for
Wait. I'll give you a good example of that is Dishonored. That was really linear, and I had no reason to go back and play it again. That's how I felt anyway.
Yeah, I never played it, but I could see
I
that.
didn't play
Yeah.
it either.
so
you know.
it sounds like pretty much we could agree. Like as long as the game's fun for you,
No, I want to argue.
Well, gee.
anything's acceptable.
I think Andrew was the one who was arguing against it. We were arguing for, so
it was
Are we on the
it was
same page now?
questions. It was topic
He
questions.
just gave in to defeat, guys.
He just wanted to be the devil's
He still
advocate.
disagrees with you, but
No, he doesn't. He is completely brainwashed now.
Well, anyways,
Your name is Android now.
Andrew.
you mean it's not?
That's actually a habit I started with everyone I knew named Andrew. I always call him Android. But
It's
it
funny.
stopped with you for some reason.
I
It's
call
funny.
him Man Drew.
I had a cousin that used to call me Sandshrew.
Sandshrew?
Yeah.
Is that true?
But,
Put blonde in your hair.
Well, anyways, from that topic and from where games started to where they are now, a lot of games are going to like mobile, and a lot of developers are going on mobile.
Money,
I hate that.
I feel
exposure.
I hate
I
playing
was like,
games
what
on
are
my
the thoughts
phone.
on that? Like, a good example is like Konami is quitting. Well, they're not going to mobile, but they're quitting making. Like, they're not going to make video games anymore. They're going to focus on slot machines and, well, I guess, yeah, mobile. And Nintendo opened up to making mobile games finally when they were specifically consoles and not online.
Well,
I don't want to play a mobile game because one, it's on my phone. Two, it kills my phone battery. So if an emergency happens, I'm pretty fucked. And I don't know. I just feel like you don't get much from a mobile game. Like
well,
it's there, but it's not there. It's not,
the whole point of
it's
the
not
mobile
fulfilling.
games is it's to grab that audience. It grabs the 3-year-olds because anybody can use it.
that's what you see.
Just gonna say.
Because anybody can use a touch screen from like maybe even 2 years old all the way up until you're like 60 and you just got a smartphone. So the mobile games and then the browser based like Facebook social games, whatever, those I don't like them. I don't play them, but they serve a purpose.
Yeah, like have you seen? If you ever go shopping for cases for an iPad, they have the ones that are like fucking thick as a Bible, Because there's kids that play Angry Birds and shit on their
Oh, yeah.
iPads, you know? Parents are like, I spent $600 on that. I'll spend another $40 to make sure you don't break it. Like,
Yeah, that's
My
true.
mom's life has been enriched because of Candy Crush.
Oh yeah, I think everybody's mom has played Candy Crush.
But we need
And she's
these
happier
games.
because of it, right?
Very true.
So would you say we need the games to get more gamers, or do you think
No,
we
what,
need the games?
what these games do is like Zynga sucks, horrible.
They kill time.
Yeah, but they make a ton of money. Candy Crush makes a ton of money. Angry Birds
Money.
is good. Never mind, they don't fall into that category. But whatever, like these casual, mobile, browser-based games make a ton of money. They build faith in video games for people,
Here's a question about
No,
which
they
gives
don't.
more funding to the games we like.
Here's a question about this. So, all these mobile games. Do you think it is a fad, or do you think it's here to stay?
It's here to stay.
oh, it's
I
here
hear
to stay.
Okay.
Like, I feel like mobile games are... Like, they're meant to bring in that user base so they can start buying consoles and doing other stuff.
If
you
they're
know?
here to stay, just like video games, they have to evolve.
Yeah, they have to evolve. Like
What do you see
comparing older games, right? We were, like I said, we bought these games. The developers knew they had to be good, otherwise they didn't make jack shit.
So
Now
how do you see them evolving?
I see them evolving as being
Let's jump through these hoops.
so like
Jump, Eddie, jump.
yeah, I'll get there in a sec. So
I'll give you a treat.
So now the engines are easily accessible. You can literally just make a game by watching a couple videos on YouTube, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna put this shit together. So it brings in a user base, but it also, they're free. It's anybody can pick it up. They don't have to be good. And so they've gotten a bad rap for being shit games, and for the most part they are.
So much DLC on them.
So much.
Yeah,
Like, so much
microtransactions.
microtransactions.
Yeah, it's all optional, but
But I don't feel like they're ever gonna get out of paid content, microtransactions. I feel like that's here to stay.
That's what's gonna stay for a while.
Would you say like from games back then to the mobile games now, it's more about the money than the players?
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, but
That's fair.
Yeah, I think it's on both ends.
They're a business.
Because, it is. It's a
Well,
business. Like,
you
you
have
have
to-
to bring them in, but you have to keep
You
them.
I'll
have to
play the
put
devil's
food-
advocate on that because
You have to put food on the developers' tables.
It's not just money. It is
It's
for the
money.
players because now looking back to like the ESA's like 2014 study or one of their studies on gamers, the average gamer like is
I will say this.
there's more 40-year-old female gamers than men under like 18.
It's true.
In which they like those games, and so if they enjoy it, that's a win. That's good.
I'm not gonna lie. When it first came out, I was all over Farmville. I was like, everybody get a fucking Farmville. I need.
I think everyone had their.
I need y'all to send me some limes. Like,
I
Social
didn't even know how to fucking play it. I
What
was
is
like, what am I
this?
doing?
My honest opinion on mobile games is it doesn't feel like a game. It feels like
No, they definitely capitalize on compulsions.
yeah, it's like it feels more like
That's true.
something that should be in a game as a mini game.
But some
Well,
people like
That's
it.
true.
That's the thing. Depends on what you're playing. I'll give you two good examples. The Simpsons Tapped Out and Fallout Shelter. It's all about tapping and waiting. Tapping
Yeah.
and waiting.
Yeah, there's a lot of waiting in a lot
Yeah.
of these games, and that is how they. That is one of
Well-
the most unfortunate things about mobile games is that there is this huge amount of waiting, and that's where they get a lot of their revenue and their microtransactions.
People who want to
Pokemon
speed that
Shuffle.
up.
Any mobile game.
Yeah.
Well, not
Oh.
even speeding it up because if
Social
they have
media
ads
games.
and they keep you on the game for 15 minutes,
It's like a
straight,
mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, they're going to win.
The games I play don't have ads.
And that's why they're all moving to this mobile platform.
So do you think that's why a lot of these new developers are going to mobile games because they just want to make the money now? And
Of
it's not-
course.
it's not a passion of.
You have to put food on the developers' tables. It's just there's no way
unfortunate.
around it. Developers don't always do this out of a labor of love. There is also a part where you have to put the food on the table.
It's very much a business.
Well, then if they
It's
want to
very
make
much
a
a
labor
business
of love, they need money.
Yeah. Even art, like anybody, artists, all of them, you do still have to, like, one of the things I always see pop up, because I'm a big part of the art community, is a huge gripe against people who, well, you're part of the art community, so a big gripe against people who are like, do it for the exposure or things like that. fact of the matter is, in order to do it, you do have to, at some point, put food on your table.
I would I would even more so give money to a mobile developer than I would somebody on, say, Kickstarter. Like, there is very much a business, and they're like, all right, cool, we're going to do this. Yeah,
I can
well,
see that.
mobile developers already got their shit out, right?
Yes.
They're blatantly trying to get my money. Okay, fine, you know.
Yeah.
We'll play along with that versus we might make this game possibly kind of, sort of, you know, maybe, you know,
No.
give me your money. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, wait, so you can sell it and I make zero profits from that? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
There's definitely you always have to, as any artist should know, you still have to build up credibility before you can get paid for your efforts. So there's a definite middle ground there.
So do you think there's still like some kind of thought of the players while they still develop these games, or do you think these developers
Yes. Well,
are more
Angry
about
Birds.
themselves now?
I mean, there are good mobile games that have had a lot of work put into them.
There's one interesting thing is, again, accessibility. I'm going to use this word a million times. Accessibility of the developer to the gaming community. There's communication lines very open between them, and they do check. Developers do check message boards and
Twitter,
things like that.
email.
Twitter, all of that. They do have either they check it personally or have somebody check for them all the feedback on the games that they have, so that they can start incorporating to a grain of salt. It's a grain of salt because let's face it, sometimes the user has no clue what the hell they're talking about or what they're asking
So
for.
I have
So
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten calls at work about the fucking Nintendo NX and how the remote control should have an SD card slot and it needs to be compatible with every Nintendo game.
Yeah.
It needs to play PlayStation games.
What?
Use an Xbox remote. and
grain of salt.
yeah.
So yeah, but they are listening, and they definitely do care about the player. It's not okay, so here's where I'm going to try to set the ground for that. You have two different sides of the video game industry. You have the business aspect, producing, directing, and marketing, PR. Those are and the CEOs. Those are the business guys, the guys who care about the money, the revenues, getting people in. And then you have the artists who care about the players, and they're developing the player base, and they're listening to them, and they want to make a game that the players enjoy. So you always, almost always, with any publisher, have this tug of war between the two. And you'll see good relationships where the developer and the publisher listen to each other, and then you have other ones where they're completely disjointed. So one listens, the other one focuses on putting the food on the table, the other one focuses on giving the game that the people want. So you have that. There you go.
Don't you think they're giving too much to the player though? Like, I don't know. I feel like we're
Sometimes.
catering to what everybody wants, so we're getting the same shit over and over and over again.
well, yeah,
Like, what happened to the independent thought and like showing new things? Like,
In the
I
game.
feel like everything
Yes.
is just regurgitated vomit. Like,
Well,
why
in
do
the
we
big
have
publishers,
4
yes.
Fallouts? Why aren't there like new games?
Yeah.
Like, why do we
it's
have
hard.
like
And
17
money
million
does that.
Assassin's Creeds? Like,
Yeah.
why are there like 20,000 versions of Angry Birds? Like, I think we're just giving too much to what people want, and we're not showing them anything new.
Money.
We're not being showed anything new,
well, that
Yeah,
goes
yes.
goes to the next subject.
and that's
What do you-
I was gonna say like same thing. Splatoon is the first new IP from Nintendo in God
True.
knows how many years, you know. And they went
Good
out on a limb, but god damn it, how successful was the Wii? Like, did you have to wait so long? Like, you know.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing
Still
about
brings
that
up a good point.
is that developers probably still do care about their fan base to a certain extent, if only because they need to sell their game, right? So they care to a certain extent.
I think they care too much. I think they're giving us too much of what we want and nothing new.
It's
So
not
not enough.
them.
Well,
Creative process allowed to the artists, or
No, I think
would
we're just
chalk that up.
regurgitated the same crap. There's like 20,000 free apps of the same game with just a different title.
Yeah.
I would chalk that up to publishers
Like,
knowing that we would
Bejeweled?
buy it.
Yeah, it's,
Bejeweled, there's like 20,000 different versions of
is that
Bejeweled.
whose fault do you think that is? Do you think that's
I think it's the user's fault because we won't buy anything new.
no.
Unless it's
I'll
the
buy
same.
new
I
things.
think it
It's
is.
money. Well, because we do that, finance
Because we do
the
that.
people who finance the games say, "Oh, well, we want them to buy the next Assassin's Creed because
Because
we
we
know
do
that
that.
works." We're scared to try anything new because we don't know if it's not going to make 1,000 times the profit, blah, blah, blah.
So, really though, is it... But you can't change the entire user base. You can't throw your next great innovative idea at them if they're not going to eat it up, because you're ultimately taking a huge loss of time and investment. So you have to make sure that they're going to eat it up. So you can't really change that user base by throwing whatever you like at them. There does have to be a little bit of...
But doesn't that just go with our mentality? We just want more of the same.
Yeah, but I think we are seeing a change from that because
of indie.
I
So.
feel like some do that. Why, like, Ubisoft was releasing all this stupid Assassin's Creed shit for the longest time, and then out of nowhere they came out with Call of War's Gunslinger, which was like a smaller, like, almost indie dev from a big studio type game, and they innovated a lot in that. Like, it was a basic shooter, right? But, like, the narrative was told from the main character to somebody, and you were living flashbacks, and the story would change based on what you did. So, like, you'd walk in, like, alright, I'm done clearing this area, I gotta go through here, and I was like, alright, cool. So I went through, and I saw chickens. So I was like, I'm gonna shoot me a chicken. So I shot a chicken, and the guy spoke, he's like, and then I stopped to get some chicken, or something like that. I was hungry. And
Is
it was
Gunslinger the 8-bit one?
No.
Okay, I was thinking...
That's Nidhogg.
Well, anyways, from what you guys are talking about, that goes to the next subject. Like, so the whole creative process from big game companies to indie developers. Do you think indie developers cater more to the audience, or do you think the AAA companies cater more to the audience?
I say it's a little bit of both.
I feel like AAA companies deliver to the audience because they're the ones giving us the same shit over and over again.
AAAs have some really dedicated people who spend like 5 years to make Grand Theft Auto 5, but then they have people who throw out crap that they just pulled out of, like, that they just copied from last year. So there's a little bit of both. Indies, they either cater to a niche, and sometimes it's way too tiny of a group that they cater to, or some indies are amazing. They care about the fans. They come up with new ideas. Or there's the indies who want to make money, and then they just remake
Everything.
they remake Bejeweled.
Here's a
Play it
question.
safe.
Do you think indies are just as afraid as publishers to like go against the grain and to not consider what their niche or their audience's needs are?
I feel like they both have the same fear from two opposite sides of the spectrum. Like, the AAA devs are like, we're spending so much money on this, it has to be good, people have to buy it. Versus indie devs are like, I'm not making jack shit, I'm doing this part-time, on top of a job, this has to be good. Otherwise, I just wasted all this time.
No, and that happens on
If they're
both.
doing it on their free time, though, isn't it more of a passion?
No, if they're doing it on their free time, it's a passion. It's probably good. But if, like, let's say they're already a published indie and they made like 80 grand off of their game last year, and that gives them maybe 2 years of free time to develop. But then let's say that they're coming up on their deadline, and they're like, oh shit, I'm gonna run out of money, so I'm gonna make a Bejeweled clone and see if I make money off of that.
I would love to get the viewpoint of someone like Toby Fox, who came up with a very original game out of Undertale. But I do have to wonder, because he definitely caters to an audience. He definitely knows his audience. I don't know. He has a really good game. I don't know if he catered to him in order to create that, or if he just went off his own experiences and just where his process came from.
I feel like a lot of these developers balance out the same as the AAA developers.
I think they do.
Because, like,
Yeah.
let's say, for example, like Shovel Knight, it's not an original title. People see it as the original title, but it's it's kind of a reskin of DuckTales mixed. Mixed with a couple other NES mechanics into it.
But that's every game. Even the MOBAs are as original as they may feel, are still just a rework of the RTS/RPG genre that came from World Warcraft 3. So
well, see, and then it goes to did they really try something new, or did they
impossible.
just...
Every game can be considered a reskin of something else. Like,
Yeah.
you know, Need for Speed toward the end of the game, you know, when your car's fast as shit, could be considered a reskin of like F-Zero.
I think there's
where
an
you can
acceptability
barely
to
see
that.
what the hell's going on, you know. Yeah.
Well,
I think it's acceptable.
I don't know. I think we're all
It
part of
depends
the
on how
creative
you
process,
remix
but we
it.
all know that like before you make anything, you always have to consider who your audience is.
Yeah.
I'm always your audience.
And that's a problem with
But-
indies.
Yeah, like,
Because
you
some
don't.
of them make it for themselves, and their tastes suck.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Big game developer companies always think who's their audience.
Yes, they always have to think who's their audience.
Everyone
because-
always has to
Is
think
it?
who's
Well,
your
there's
audience.
people's jobs on the line in
Yeah,
that case
people-
versus one person
Big game
starving.
devs have to they have to cater to a wider audience, so they throw in these, you know,
Multiplayer on everything.
these multiplayer, these you know, holding your hand, the DLC, you know.
We've come full circle.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, see,
What did you know?
another thing I just thought of right now too is
Don't fuck it up. It just came full circle.
Circle right now.
Mess up the circle.
game over, man.
Get out of the
Well, I was
circle.
gonna say like, so a lot, talking about going back to original ideas from both, taking that risk. A lot of these AAA companies actually buy the games or publish the games from the indie developers that did do a reskin of another game.
That's true.
So that could be why they don't take the risk, because they're like, well, hey, this guy already has a following. Let's use that.
Yeah, they do like the purchase of person's credibility. So, I mean, that is common.
I'm sure
And
there's.
I
Sorry, go
think you redoing an idea, reskinning is okay. It's acceptable if the game is just so awesome. And that's hard to quantify. It's hard to
To a
put in
degree.
words. Yeah,
well,
but-
not just to a degree, but to a limit.
yeah. There you go.
The first 5 reskins may start to fill a greater part of the niche, but eventually you start hitting this 25 different reskins, and you end up now with bullshit. Like, what is...
And
Mobile
if it's-
games.
Yeah,
That's what mobile
exactly.
games are.
Yeah, like what are you
Exactly.
making? Are you,
Reskins of everything, and it's all just bullshit.
are you making the game because you're reskinning it because the game was okay, and you're making it like
Nobody
what it
reskins
should?
okay games. They reskin
Well,
good games. and
Okay,
turn
it was
them into
good,
okay
but
games.
you wanted to
And then
make
do shit games.
you wanted
Yes.
to add something so amazing to it. That could be good or bad. But if you just remake it because you're like, I know how to make that game, I'm going to make that game, I'm going to make money. Yay! Look at me, I'm a game developer.
So, from my development standpoint, I can do original content. It's just not anybody who's done the creative process. Doing original content is extremely difficult. Coming up with brand new designs from the bottom up, being able to add on to a design can be really good. It can be nice. It can be something that really impassions a developer too, because you have this idea and you can see it going a new way to become something even bigger. I've done a lot of that with a lot of different engines, with a lot of different concepts where I was like, man, this concept is awesome. You know what would make it really awesome? If I added aliens to it. so aliens. If
Haley.
that's a good example of a perfectly acceptable part of the creative process. I do like to see more original content, but
I feel like games have been around long enough that, you know, in its lifespan, games will find maybe 5 different genres, you know, in the next till whatever the hell, you know, shit, I die, whatever, you know, before it just starts tapering off. There's nothing new to do. So the only real innovation is to start mixing genres, you know.
Oh, yeah,
racing
that's where we're at.
Racing games with RPG
I don't
elements.
think so.
Well,
I
that's
think
that's how
the
MOBAs
same
came
basic thing
Actually-
of the game, but like the art style, the old little mechanics here or there, the engine. There's so many tiny little details that you can tweak
Oh, yeah.
here
There's-
and there on the
and
game.
there's new areas to explore still. Social gaming is becoming a lot more prevalent, where you can build social aspects into games people, especially developers, are being able to quantify stuff like me talking to you or music or these very abstract, non-numerical ideas, turn them into numerical ideas. I'm getting very technical here, so I am sorry for anybody who can't follow along. But
Levels of
basically,
abstraction, I got
Like
you should definitely get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole abstract process of feelings and music and things that can't be turned into numbers. There are people who are can take these formal system or take these abstract ideas and turn them into formal systems that have numbers, which computers can then process, which video games run off of computers. So
No way.
yeah, I know, right? This is probably the first thing that can be easily, I can figure this out. Numbers go into computers. Feelings can't be put into computers. So then you have these games that are very social, and that's a brand new thing that we're starting to add to video games. So,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that goes into like a lot of other developers that try to experiment with that kind of stuff. Things outside of normal gameplay.
Yeah.
Like there are some pixel junk games where the main game is revolving around music, or like the rhythm games where it's all about the music as well.
Yes, exactly.
The last time a game really innovated for me that I was like, what the fuck? And it actually broke the game for me. I couldn't play it. Was the first Metro game, Metro 2033, in that you had all your ammo was also your currency. So you'd run into some shit and you're like, oh my god, I can't shoot this guy because I
want to be broke.
Yeah, it's like I need a gun, I can't shoot him. So the game itself was beautiful, it was great, but like that one aspect had me going, I can't do this, and I fucking traded it.
Metal Gear 1.
No, that reminds me of. Metal Gear. Yes.
Like no one knew to switch the controller to second player to be Psycho Mantis.
No one knew any of that was gonna happen. A tank.
A tank, what the hell? Why is this guy talking about ravens?
But there's
in
an
the
even
snow?
better example of like what he just said and like the whole innovation thing. Spec Ops: The Line.
I fucking love that game.
Which was the de facto. I think it was Unreal Engine. Basically, it was Resident Evil 5. It was nothing new. All these cover-based shooters had already done what it had done. The story was really great, but the gameplay was, I thought, still awesome. It was the same thing that we had seen many times before, but with the story integrated in the gameplay, I'm like, I can't.
The narrative.
I hesitated.
Undertale.
I would have won the game, but I hesitated. I would have won here or there, but I'm like, I can't shoot this guy. I don't want to shoot this guy.
Yeah.
If there's a way to avoid this, I want to avoid it, and that made the game that much more fun for me.
That's actually one of the more interesting things about Undertale is that it also takes the very social, the very abstract ideas of not, like in an RPG, not killing things. Like you actually are killing things. So it takes that whole social aspect and brings it into the game and integrates it into the game. Yeah. And that abstraction is interesting.
If you haven't played Undertale's, like...
I've never played Undertale.
Yeah, it's an RPG game that introduces you to this world. Yeah, kind of. It's kind of like a... It's like an RPG turn-based game mixed with like a bullet hell game.
No. Okay,
but
I'm never gonna play that.
It is. It's a really good. It's a mix of so many games. It's a puzzle game. It's a very story-driven game. It has a bullet hell system. It has an RPG system, and they're all integrated very well. In fact, the whole bullets hell system. Every character you face that you have to dodge uses the bullet hell system, and their attacks have to do with their character. So it's still very story integrated. And the ways all these elements are just mixed together makes a very cohesive game. It's a very good example of good game design.
Yeah, like another thing about Undertale too is like when you're introduced to the game, you look at it as like a normal RPG.
Yes.
So you're expecting to kill everything, which you don't have to do.
Yeah.
You could pretty much let anyone go. Like, was it flirt? And I don't know. Juan knows more about
puzzle
it.
stuff. Yeah.
Undertale, like what's all like the stuff you do? Like you could flirt with them. You
can do
just talk with them.
Yeah.
It's basically you interact with every character that you run into.
And depending on what you do, determines your ending. which
Yes.
it
That's-
does the character development of your character and
It's very story integrated.
Yeah.
It's
Plus
very
visual novel.
if you
Just
don't
kidding.
you don't have to play it. I hadn't actually played it. I imagine I would have killed something if I played it because I would have played it like an RPG.
But does it actually innovate, or does it just bring together those genres really well?
it
It
innovates.
innovates.
I think when you bring stuff together well, you're innovating because anybody can say, "I'm going to throw this one with this,"
But
and then
it's not like they just mix two genres together. They actually
It's
they actually
they
thought
bred
cohesive.
yeah, they're like, how is this player gonna think when he gets to this part?
Yeah.
And like even at the beginning of the game when you like spoilers, so
Yeah.
when you first meet the flower and he's like telling you kind of the tutorial thing, and he's like, hey, take my petals.
Yeah.
These are love petals or something like that.
Love.
So you
Love-
deflowered
Yes.
that
Well,
character.
you end up
No, no.
you end up
He
finding out
deflowers
that it's hurting you. That's not
Yeah.
love. Like that's the bad guy. Don't take his stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's how you start learning the game.
So it's
It-
very interesting.
It introduces you to, like I said, like making you think it's an RPG when it has different
Yeah.
stuff. So,
It definitely innovates. Very very innovative.
It doesn't follow the basic flow. It kind of
yeah,
contradicts
it's
it.
outside the box.
I definitely suggest playing it all the way up to the second boss. I'm using quotes around that. So, but the second boss, because the first part of the game is a tutorial. The second part of the game is the actual, the second level is the actual, real feeling of the game. So, each time you progress, every level gets more and more interesting. So, it's definitely a game you should really stick to. But if you have to, you can always just watch somebody else play it. Definitely not the way I would recommend doing, but an option.
Yeah, it says like a really emotional drive when you play the whole game.
Yes,
Yeah.
you
that's,
do
That's
become
how
connected.
it was with Spec Ops. Like, that game almost made me fucking cry. I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like,
And that concludes our Undertale commercial.
To be fair, a lot of people did give it Game of the Year, at least second place.
And I haven't even
in a lot
touched
of
it
things.
yet. I
How
know.
dare you?
How you
You
should
touched
at least
everything.
I'm gonna go rip those petals off and
Yeah.
get into that game. I'm gonna pollinate that. Oh,
Shut up.
Shut up, Mike.
Damn it, Mike.
Well,
God
anyways,
damn it, Mike. It's
so
shut up, Mike.
There's a lot of. I do want to add this real quick. There is huge horizons that video games can still explore and are exploring. So innovation is still a very big part of game development and something that game developers still can explore.
I feel like it's possible. I just don't see it very often. I feel like they're struggling with it, and that's why we're getting all these.
well, it's
There's
hard.
rehashes.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work. But there's, like I said, social aspects in gaming are becoming something we can access now. So
and yeah, I was gonna say like
innovative.
from after talking about all this, where would you want to see games lead to now? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, from where they are right now, where do you want them
I-
to start heading towards?
Would love to just talk more and more, so I'm going to. So I get to hear my own voice. No, all right. So I definitely want to see that social aspect of games being explored. These moral explorations, these ideas of right and wrong being explored and being quantified in games. These quandaries of is what I'm doing
Consequences.
right? Yeah, it's very, very consequential, very open-ended games, becoming more and more accessible, being more and more able to be explored. I want to see more developers explore those ideas.
I would like games to be more, to just put everything you said in a handbasket, more emotional. Like if a movie can make me cry, if a movie can make me scared, I want games to do that. Not
I
all
will say
games,
this,
I-
not to my favor, but
Yeah.
Undertale did actually make me cry.
Yeah.
So it did. It did.
I-
It was a very emotional game.
That's Kingdom Hearts. Yeah. So
I don't feel like every game needs that. I feel like there's some games that you just need to play to zone out, to
Oh, yeah.
collect or get achievements or whatever. Just to be like,
Mine was fun.
Fuck work, man. I just want to play Angry
Yeah.
Birds or something. But there are some games where you just want to spend your entire weekend playing this. All right, let's dive into this, see what happens.
One question with that. What are those guys? The guys that make the Borderlands, Tales from the Borderlands?
Telltale Games.
Yeah, Telltale
Yeah.
Games. Is that something that you're considering? Like, is that an actual video game though? Because it's telling you a story that might get you emotionally involved. But at what point does it stop being a video game and more of a choose your own
Isn't
story?
it like a visual novel?
I think-
That's what I would.
Yeah,
agree
I
with.
I
feel
still
like
say
it
those
is-
count as games.
They do.
I
There's
feel
a
like it is a game. Like I feel games stop at like a DVD menu. Like, that's
Yeah.
Like after
I'll
that,
agree
I'm
on
like,
that one.
all right, whatever.
one of the most interesting things about anybody who develops games is one of the first things you have to do is understand what is a game. It's the concept of ludology, which is the exploration of gameplay, the study of gameplay. A lot of people have like really thrown themselves at it. So you have a very abstract question of what the hell is a game. A lot of people explore that. So I think a game is definitely something with a high level of interaction. So as long as the game continues to stay interactive, where choices are meaningful, you have a game.
Yeah.
But even then, like games like Gone Home have no choices whatsoever. You just explore and look.
But
Like
that's
Those are-
the interactive
that-
portion.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like Myst, the old school PC game.
Yeah,
It's
fucking
just
yeah.
That's
exploring.
an
Jesus
artsy
Christ.
game, but it's a
Still
game.
Interaction. You are interacting with the game.
Like,
So-
what was the other one I played?
Esther or
Azura's
something.
Wrath or something?
Asura's Wrath.
Yeah, it was pretty much pure cinematics with like probably like
Yeah.
a minute of gameplay every once in a while. It was
Yeah.
still a game.
My, I guess, future views for games is for them to be completely accepted into pop culture. Period.
It feels like they are.
They
Yeah.
already are.
Yeah.
Thanks
to
You mean
thanks
like
to mobile
on the
games.
same level?
You
as
live in the
movies?
90s.
as books. I
As
mean,
books.
I want them to be
I would
everyday
like that.
items that everybody uses. I want like an educational game to actually objectively teach, not just have numbers or history in it. But I would love to see gamification in a way that makes sense, that's real, it's helpful to the world.
I feel like they
Pragmatic
already
game
are.
design?
They just it's like not every like
I want
books
it
are
everywhere.
Okay,
popular.
I did the typing game like back in high school. So
I want it
I learned how to
everywhere.
type.
And then
You
just
mean like ingrained into like
Everyday life.
a whole part, extra parts of our culture?
there are
in
still
education.
people. Yeah, there's still people who don't play games today
wanna
in
see
our
more.
age group
But
and
that-
younger.
I don't know. I think we shouldn't. I don't think it needs to be part of like every
I
day
think
thing.
it would be
Like
cool.
Yeah.
there's people who actually believe in going outside and exploring
Screw those
the world.
Which brings me on to
Who want to
my,
play
my
sports? Who
next
want to climb
topic.
mountains?
Technology in gaming. I'd really like virtual reality is big now, but augmented reality is something I'd like to see. Like Pokemon Go is probably going to be the biggest
Probably,
example.
yeah.
Oh, that gets you out. Yeah.
That
so
we
there's
see.
Still,
The Google Glass is starting to bring out augmented reality.
Yeah, that's what I
too.
mean.
Like
So
Trips to the
that's
museum is
I
augmented reality.
want to see
but-
that.
That's a good thing. That's
That's
definitely-
one.
But
big
that's not gaming. That's like
That's definitely a game. Though.
Well,
You're
anyways,
still
If it's
interactive.
done, if the
something
technology
else, though.
gets good enough, that is going to be gaming. Your first person shooter will be you running around in this giant black arena with virtual reality goggles on.
They've actually
and-
made
not
a
too
vest
far off.
that
Yeah.
will like hit you in the chest every time you
Yeah,
get
I
shot.
mean-
Fuck that.
that was going to go to the last topic. Unless anyone else has stuff they want to say
Yeah,
about games.
I want to add one thing to that. last
Jiggle
thing
physics.
is
I
I just want the thing from Sword Art Online to happen.
They have games of that.
do.
No.
Oh, you're talking about real Sword
Yes,
Art.
where you can actually.
Oh,
Guys.
guys.
Yes.
Oh God.
Let's
Okay.
not.
You want to be in the game and you feel like you're in the game
I
and you're not
always-
even moving.
Let's not.
you should
Let's
get a
not.
better
That's like a
life.
whole different stage.
Do you
of-
want to be trolled at that
reality.
level?
Yes.
Because you're gonna get trolled at that level.
Of course, of course.
It's not wrong if she's a girl in the game.
I'm no longer gonna talk to you guys. I'm gonna go outside and like sit in the grass and be one with the flowers.
You can still do that when you take off the helmet. I don't know why people are so afraid of
Yeah, but
technology.
the thing is people will get so overwhelmed by it. Like not
Some people
overwhelmed.
if
will.
their
but
lives
by it.
didn't
Some
suck,
people will.
they wouldn't.
Everyone's life sucks.
Everyone life sucks.
So if we all
Your
try
guys'
to
lives
make
don't
it
suck.
Augmented reality isn't fully
So it's
realized
the
just yet. And
VR
people-
versus AR.
people are still,
Right.
sucked into games. It's not gonna stop.
Well,
I
games
don't know,
are
I
games
just-
are actually considered an addiction. So
I
people are
have-
gonna be addicted to
You
some
could-
things that
Yeah,
sometimes are
there
not
are-
anyways.
there
You
are
can put
AA
them down if
classes
you're
for-
happy, though. So we
Well,
should focus on making
everyone's
people
happy.
happier.
I don't know. I think one thing I do want to see in games in the future though is
Jiggle physics. I'm sorry. Go on.
More jiggle
Dead or
physics,
Alive.
damn it.
like a quality control
What's
for
wrong
the
with
indie
real life
games.
jiggle physics?
Because
Yeah.
because I feel like
Not
Nothing.
big enough,
Absolutely nothing.
I feel like games now. I mean, libraries for consoles and PCs and stuff are flooded with all these shit games that shouldn't be on there.
Even Steam.
Yeah, all of it. Like I don't know.
Oh.
Last time I've been
Isn't that
like,
what I just said?
I was gonna say like the last time I've been on
Me too.
Steam. Like I remember like a couple years back, I would go on Steam and I would recommend games I like. Now it's pushing all these joke games and like shit games everywhere, and I'm like,
I'm still getting good recommendations.
yeah, but you play a lot of those shit games.
Oh, just because
Yeah.
you don't like them, you call them
You
shit.
just have low standard.
Well, like I said, like that's one thing is like I want to see a quality control where
Higher quality control.
I know
Yeah.
how that's gonna happen. There's each app store is flooded with like 1 million games. How long? Even if there's a lot of good games, how hard is it to find some that are good for you? So once these app stores integrate better searches and better recommendations, you're gonna get less crap games.
Yeah,
But
but,
see,
we
that's-
need to stop doing that, though.
can't.
Because,
It's not gonna happen.
no, because everybody's so into their personalized crap that they don't try anything new. So that's why we're getting into the
Well,
whole bunch
see,
of
like-
million crap games.
like a good example for like quality control, like when PS2 era, Xbox era.
So many games.
Yeah, like there's so many games people didn't hear of, but they were good.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't run
That-
into
that-
really shitty games all the like. If you found a really shitty game, you didn't see it anywhere, so it was,
Yeah.
they couldn't produce it.
Well,
Here's where you're gonna get a good game, or not where you're gonna get a game. Here's where you're going to hear about a game. It's whoever squawks the loudest, whoever just talks the most, is the person whose game is going to end up being recognized. And that game can easily be the shitty game. Whereas really good games will get like looked over because nobody's like praising its name, and you sometimes that's just the way it works. Is that as shitty as the game may be, if a lot of people are talking about it and it's getting promoted by the developers or the producers or whatever, it's going to get to
Some
the
games
forefront.
are popular because they're shit, you know.
So
And
are.
YouTube.
Goat Simulator.
Well,
Again,
like
you know.
recently I saw a game on I was telling Eddie about this the other day too. It was on Steam's Greenlight, and it was just a game where you're kicking each other in the like dick.
I saw that.
Yeah, and the guy even said,
Rock
I just
Simulator.
made it.
Whatever.
It wasn't gonna be anything cool, but then people want it because it's a joke game. But then
That's
it
what you
fills up.
should expect. That's the time we live in now. The PS2 days, it was you had to work really hard, so chances are there was going to be some quality to get that game out the door. Now, anybody can make a game, which means there's a lot of crap, but at the same time, if anybody can make a game, you're going to get that one game out of 100,000 that is just so much better than you would have got any other way.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
one
but-
game that I
have to
bought
be
on
able to
Xbox Live, and it was so stupid, but it was so fun, and it was probably meant to be shit, but I loved it. It was like
Shit simulator.
You had it was just a single picture, and
Of shit.
there was a bowl with a piece of sushi in it, and you had sticks that you had to control with the left and right stick, and you had to bring
Oh,
the sticks
God.
down, pick it up, and like put it into another bowl.
Of shit.
And
Thanks.
yeah,
Sushi. Sushi.
Well, see, like games like that don't get discovered because all these other games that
Yes.
YouTubers are talking about because
yeah.
The fact of the matter is, whoever talks, squawks, and gets promoted the most.
Or whoever
that
gets
was
up on
me-
the top of the search
That was
engine.
me just taking a chance. I'd never even heard about the
Yeah.
game. I was like, all right, let's try this. And it was a fucking $1.
So many
I
good
was
games
like, there you go.
just passed over because the developer just doesn't have the
The way to
the
put it out
access.
is-
Yeah.
The marketing.
the marketing exactly.
As a matter of fact, that's all you need. Any app that's better than just thrown together with the right marketing will sell and will do very, very well.
So
To go back
There's
to
a few
what
caveats
Mike
to
said earlier about games, you know, not being in pop culture, I feel like they are. Like I know we're past this
Yeah,
by like
well.
20 minutes, but like I've been dying for this. I feel like they are because not everyone reads books, not everyone goes to movies, not everyone listens to music. You know, I feel like games are there. They do get recognized. They are, you know, they're not shown up on the news. You can't like turn
Unless they're
on.
bad games.
Yeah.
And
Rock
negative
Bottom.
lights they're usually shown.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, in like good games are also highlighted as well. You know, I mean, they're not. You can't turn on fucking Good Morning America and see someone on stage playing. You know,
Actually,
Undertale. I guess.
I feel like games are a huge part of society nowadays.
I feel like they are too.
But not,
yeah.
but
Not
not
as
in the like mainstream. There's still a definite group of older people who do not see games as a viable source of entertainment, and so they don't get that recognition
treat
from
it like
that older
art.
group.
Right.
I imagine in 20 to 30 years, we're going to see a lot more video game coverage. But we still have to wait for those old people to die off.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier, but I'm nicer than you.
That's because they still believe going outside and like climbing mountains is better
You
than
can
watching.
do that and play games. There's
No,
nothing
they
stopping
don't
you.
believe that.
We did that growing up.
I'm not talking about
Oh.
myself. I'm talking about them, and they don't believe
They don't climb
technology.
mountains. They're
Yeah.
old.
Well,
They believe that like just staying home, drinking their coffee, reading the newspaper.
Well, they said
Watching
there's
television.
Where we grew up playing games, they grew up outside playing with sticks and
Yeah,
playing in
jumping
traffic.
rope and shit
be
like
fair,
that.
And racism.
and
a good
And
example.
racism.
A good example.
Good
of-
old
of-
racism.
I've met old people who are very progressive and do play video games. So I'm not saying that not all of them don't, but I'm just saying there is still a large
Yeah, but there's-
generational gap.
There's still those kids who came from those kinds of parents. Like I've
Yes.
met people like that who are like, I don't play video games. I don't watch
Yeah.
cartoons. That shit's for kids because my parents taught me to do this and that.
Yeah.
You still
Yeah.
meet people
Like-
our age that do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But for the majority of people, I feel like games are very much mainstream. Even if they don't get recognized, they're still...
It's a source of income now. It's considered an actual real job. While back then it was more. It was still
it's
kind of
an
a
art.
Yeah.
It's a sport. I mean, how is
It's
it
a
not
sport,
main... How is it not pop culture? Like...
Well, yeah, like
I just- none of the
Activision
ways
is
that I-
actually
2014, 2015, I forgot what it was. The prize pool for the winning team for League of Legends, I believe it was. Their
$2.
their prize pool was larger than that of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was fucking huge. Like,
Nice.
Well,
I mean, split between 5 people, but you know.
It's still pretty good.
I was like, it's mainstream. It's gonna be mainstream even more as time goes by because there's so many people getting the competitive scene, which is getting huge now.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
And then just that basic aspect of I want to come home and just veg, you know,
Oh, that's
whether you want to
Badge.
be,
So,
yeah,
All
Go
of
home
the
and
above.
badge.
I want to go home and be DJ Scribbles.
well, back to what you guys were saying. Because I wasn't able to throw it in when you guys were talking about going out and playing games. And what was it? One of the people that climbed Mount Everest actually took a DS with him because it was the only thing that kept him busy while he traveled and explored.
I could
How do you
imagine.
charge that?
I don't know. It actually.
Yeah.
Okay, explain it to us.
I was gonna say like.
He's
how
just
I-
trying to promote Nintendo. Just kidding.
Yeah, if it worked
tied
there.
in little window.
No, but I was like, even the design was like made so it could go up that height without
Wow.
crashing. Like cell phones and stuff couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
But you know, that guy's like back to what
Maybe
I
it
was originally saying. That
overheats.
guy said he couldn't really do that kind of stuff unless he had some kind of entertainment. That was his entertainment. And,
He probably
So
walked
bring up
like
the-
2 steps in the game. He's like, "Fuck my family."
well, the DS was
I can't
originally
feel my
made
fingers.
for people that read book. Well, the DS was made for
Huge
the
villains.
business person, and that's why it was the design was like that.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of developers of consoles are doing nowadays. So.
Yeah, consoles are moving into like a giant, you know, an
They're crazy.
actual media, you know, hubs, and not just games.
I do have a conundrum that always challenges me is my love for video games. I love video games, especially even as a source of entertainment and all these other things, obviously, because, and I come from a developer background where I like making games. So I love all that stuff. The one thing, though, is I do, in some ways, hate how driven people are to entertainment instead of like enlightenment. So I'm I very much so like and enjoy enlightenment. So there is a part of me that has some disdain for the entertainment industry, but at the same time feels like I need to and I want to thrive off it. So there's this conundrum of how much entertainment is too much I don't know if that makes
In a
sense.
game.
One movie.
So,
One movie. So, at what point should we start backing off of the entertainment side of everything and start going?
There was
Maybe this is
There
too
was a
heavy for
study a
this.
couple years ago.
This is
that,
too heavy.
Like 90% of players don't finish their games.
Who many?
I can attest to that.
Like, well, I'll probably like pulling this out my ass. But
You
it was
people
like
are
90.
horrible gamers.
How many?
I hate you all.
How many artists? How many developers? How many people like indie developers, artists, and people like that, writers, don't finish their projects either? So everybody, raise your hand and don't you lie.
Yep.
Yeah.
But see, I think it's crazy because like I feel like video games was the thing that got me into drawing and all that stuff. That was the
Me too.
inspiration for all that. It's also the inspiration for like the writing I used to do and pretty much a lot of stuff I do now.
Okay.
But I don't know.
I do want to see.
I feel like it's not that bad to
More-
use it as entertainment
like-
and
Just gonna say,
I
don't.
don't think
like
games have.
it's not too much entertainment because I don't know. I feel like everybody knows how to balance themselves off with that kind of stuff for entertainment.
I
Yeah.
don't
Are
know.
you sure
I feel
about
like
that?
The whole, I don't know. I feel like that's all everyone cares about is entertainment. And
It's-
that's why
it's
we
becoming
have
too
this whole
That's
slew
my-
of shit.
Well,
Well,
Because
anyway,
I love-
everyone just
They
wants
should
to
make money.
you want to make
zone
money?
out.
they said 99%
I agree with
of human life is strictly driven by entertainment.
I believe
that
it.
Now,
No, it's always been like that. No matter what you're doing,
you
career-wise,
know what, that's
and
probably true.
everything, it's
That's
driven by
probably true.
entertainment.
Hunting is entertaining.
Even learning is entertainment.
Dancing.
Running for your life is entertaining.
Oh, God.
This
is so
what we
fun.
did hundreds of years ago.
yeah, that was very entertaining.
I mean, wouldn't it have to be though?
Well,
I mean,
the-
if everyone was a
Music.
fucking monk, like, would we have computers?
Music and cave drawings.
Would we just be sitting on the fucking plains field like, yeah, I'm laying down?
No, we'd all
No,
be dead.
it's-
We'd be extinct.
Well, anyways,
There's
so
there's so much truth.
Yeah,
no,
how far?
just
Maybe
be more
enlightenment.
animalistic. We'd be naked right now.
As much as I would
Talking
like to
together.
see.
Fuck that.
Wait, what?
We'd be naked, mumbling to each other.
This,
Like,
this ketchup packet could cover my junk, so I'm glad I'm not naked.
Well, gee.
I'm sorry for your loss.
For the listeners at home, for the listeners at home, it is a very small packet.
It's slightly bigger than a normal packet.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, it's above
less
average.
than a
10 out of
normal
10 would
packet of-
replay again.
so, in closing,
GTY.
Yeah.
GTOY. Sorry, go on.
So, in closing,
Game of the year.
you know, back from
games have
An
changed
opening.
a lot.
yeah, games.
Games change. There's a
In
lot of DLC.
conclusion,
Game's good.
I
Game-
believe that
Games have come a long way, but they still have a lot more to go. 'Cause
Yeah,
they don't
there's-
have
right-
a lot more to go. It's just gonna keep evolving.
Well, as
to
of right
something.
now, like
Not the
you
same
said, games are just
thing.
shit.
Well,
My
they're
last closing
stagnated.
statement, it's evolving, but they keep going back to the central core of what gaming is. Because like they tried to move, they tried the Wiimotes, and they always go back to central gaming towards the end.
The Wii remote did
What's
bring in a
central
lot of
gaming?
older gamers, though.
Sitting in front
And
of
Wii
TV
remote
with
out.
your controllers.
The Wii actually brought in a lot of handicapped gamers, which was actually pretty neat. People were buying the Wii like constantly because, they would be used in hospitals. Like people who couldn't sit there with a controller, just wave your arm.
I don't know.
Well, see,
I
games
feel
that-
like
Unless
what
you
we
have
have now
Parkinson's.
is not going to be it. It's just going to change. In like 30 years, it's probably all going to be virtual reality, and we're going to be like, I remember back in the day when we had a controller.
Yeah,
What's a
Like,
controller?
Jiggle
that-
physics.
I know.
Virtual reality.
We're gonna-
Jiggle physics. We're going to talk about jiggle physics,
gonna-
and they're going to be like,
Equal
that's
head.
it. That was a thing. That's like
We're
every
gonna
anime.
talk about how great DLC was.
Now you pay for every little thing.
I know.
Equal representation
You want
of
your
jiggle
character
physics for
jump? You
men
pay
and women.
$5.
Thanks for listening.
That was New
we're
Challenger
down.
Gaming here.
Yeah.
Podcast number 1.
Thanks. I guess we're out. This has been Lauren, enlightening you.
This has been Eddie.
Mike.
And it's been 1.
Ta-da!
And
No, I'm
Andrew, of course.
Of course, apparently.
No, I'm the editor. Not the writer editor.
Yeah. Stop.
We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to like
Why are
and
you getting
subscribe.
up so much?
Yeah, you better like and subscribe.